Everybody, welcome to One Deck Dungeon Phone UI developer stream today. I am Jennifer. I am the UI designer for Handelabra games. Let me pause this because I don't want it to take up my... and today we're going to be taking a behind the scenes look at laying out things like the how to play section in the game, and then I'll be doing some updates to the options panel to reformat it for portrait. And then the second half of today's stream, John will hook things up in the code. So it'll be still get to see some different things in the UI that we haven't really streamed before. And if you missed last week's developer stream, we worked on the first part of that. I showed the endgame UI, and then John worked on some things in the main game view scene, and those are available on YouTube now. If you go to Handelabra Games YouTube page, you'll find them. So, alright, so the help section in One Deck Dungeon, if you haven't seen it, actually it would make sense. I will do what I did last week, and I will show you the regular one first, so you can see what it looks like. And it goes, there's 3 sections. There's the getting started section, the gameplay section, and the reference section. And they do scroll, and there's information about the game and about Forest of Shadows expansions, and all sorts of information about how to play the game. So right when it's the landscape version is kind of designed to work in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then if you're looking at it in 16:9, it'll expand to fill the screen. I'll show you that. Yeah, but like all the content is in the middle, so you can, if you're playing it on an iPad or something, it'll all show up. So for portrait or phone UI, it is designed to work in 9:16, and then also in like the taller aspect ratios, and it's working pretty well to do that as it is. What I'm going to be looking at today is updating the screenshots, and then what needs to happen in the layout to accommodate different shaped screenshots and things like that. Because as you can see, like on this page, like all the text is there, but it's still showing like the new game screen for landscape. I'm trying to find another good example. And then like here's like entering a room, but it's showing it on desktop, which isn't going to be too instructive if you're playing the game on your phone. So, and I will, I'll say that I have the screenshots I captured are based on how the game currently is, and it is still in progress, so some things may not be final yet, but you can see where things are going. So, how is all of this set up in Unity? There are prefabs for every single page in the help section, and so there's like this folder here. In this, there's 29 pages in the help section for One Deck Dungeon, which is not as many as there are for a game like for Sentinels, for example. And so there's a folder with all of the prefabs for the landscape, or desktop version of One Deck Dungeon, and then hello Migrant P. I just saw Migrant P says hello in the chat. And as always, if you have any questions as I'm going through stuff about UI or any games at Handelabra, just feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will attempt to answer them. And then there's a folder. I converted all of them to portrait. So one way that works. So if you look at the the landscape ones, they're their width is 1024 to fit in the layout, and then for the portrait ones, their width is 540, and then the height depends on how, you know, how much content there is. So like the introduction page you can see on the screen, where those blue dots show the edges of the thing that's being selected. So like the introduction page is about that long, but then there's like the icon reference, which just goes on forever, goes all the way down there. But that we don't really need to worry about that at the moment, because it looks like it translated pretty well to portrait. So let's actually go inside one of these pages, and what would be a good one? I actually have a list of all of the ones that need to be updated. So let's start with enter a room. Alright, so look at all these things in here. So the parent object for the prefab, it has a vertical layout group on it, which forces all of the objects inside of it to be evenly spaced out. Like, as you can see, there's like spacing right now is 15. If we wanted more space, we could make that more space. But I think, you know, 15 is working okay. And it's got some like padding on the left and right. We can make that, you know, more or less depending how we wanted it. For now, I've kept them, you know, with 50 as the padding. I may make that a little bit less padding so more stuff fits, but I think right now you can kind of read it, and it's working okay. So there's the header scroll, which is the scroll image, and then inside of that there is the text that is anchored inside of it. And then there's this paragraph of text, this paragraph of text, the image, and then some more text. So this image here is the help enter room image. So where is that image coming from? There is this folder full of atlases for the game, and there's a help atlas, and then I added this week a help portrait atlas, and we can take a look at what's inside of the portrait one. What I'll probably eventually do is move some of the little bits that are used in both, copy them over the help one, so then when you build the game it only needs the help portrait atlas. But for today, all that's in here, there's like the background image for the portrait help pages, and then the screenshots. And right now they're not very big. I'll probably replace them with slightly higher resolution ones once the game visuals are finalized. So for all of the, maybe it would be easier to see if I open this in a window. So these are all the images that are in the regular help atlas, and you can see there's screenshots for various things that happen in the game that are used throughout the help section. And for all of the ones that are like the full screen, I have portrait versions that I captured that are, you know, they're work in progress, some of them, but especially like the boss fight has some things that are not final in it, off the top of my head, and probably the descent, but it's, you know, the general idea of what we want things to look at, so at least we can lay it out to be functioning. So here's the image, the help enter room. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to the help enter room portrait, which is this image. So we can go ahead and pop that in there, and as you can see, because I have preserve aspect checked, it makes it, you know, the correct shape at least. I could uncheck that and it would stretch it out, but right now it's in there, but it's pretty tiny. So what we need to do is make it like a little bigger. And because it's using the vertical layout group, it's automatically sizing things to whatever it's laying things out based on the size that they're set to. And the image has a layout element on it with the set height. So we can make it, let's try making it 400. Does that look good? Or maybe 500 might be a little bit big, especially if we're trying to stay consistent on the later screens. But here it kind of makes sense, because when you look, when you think about, on my computer screen it looks big, but on a phone screen it's not going to be so big. And then you can kind of see what's happening in the screen. And then, the description here is explaining, when you enter a room, what's happening. Here's what it looks like when you enter a room. And what does this one say? And if it was already open, then the encounter begins. So I think that's probably all we're gonna, we update. There's probably gonna be some revisions to some of the stuff before it's finalized, but visually that's the only thing left to do to this page. So I will commit the changes to the prefab, and now because I updated the prefab in the, even though it's not in the actual help scene, it's in the help testing scene. When I go back into the portrait help scene, that page will be updated now. So we can see how it looks in the, actual format. I think, was that in the gameplay section? So here's this page, and you can see it's, it scrolls. I don't know. I don't think it's probably not going to have a scroll bar on phone, because you'll be scrolling with your finger. But I think, that's looking about right. So now I'm going to go and do that for the rest of the screens that need the update. Alright, so that was enter a room. We can check that off. The overview is some other, so yeah, we'll do the setup and then the encounter steps and other stuff. So let's go back to the setup screen. And this one's a little bit more involved, because as you can see, there's all these pointers pointing to like the important things on the new game screen. So this will be kind of interesting. So first we will update this with the portrait new game screen. Am I on the wrong thing? I guess I must be. Yeah, there's no image there, so I will make it none so it doesn't confuse me. So this is the image that we need to update. Alright, and as you can see, it's like out of bounds on here, so let's take a look at why it's doing that. We'll make it 400, so if it's in here. And we made that other one of 500 as the height, so let's make this one 500 as the height. Alrighty. Put it right in the middle there, and that is probably about right. I guess the parent object should be a little bit taller to accommodate the text that we're going to be, because we're going to be making some of these labels a little bit bigger so they're easier to read. So let's make it 600. Okay, so let's adjust all of these little pointers. So the first one, let's see. Let's try to find, let's go from top to bottom. So the dungeon. Alright. So the way that it works, the new game screen works on portrait, is you click on, up here where it has Dragon's Cave selected. When you click on it, you get a pop-up window that shows all the different options, and then when you select one, the pop-up window closes, and then it's in this section there. So it has dungeons pointing to choose a dungeon. I don't know if it would make more sense to have that pointing pointing there. And let's see what size. So all of the text I've updated it to be 28 is the font size. And I'll have to see how it looks on device. We may end up making that a little bit bigger across the board, but these little pointers are different font, and I've been making them 25, and I think that works okay. So like that label is going to dungeons, and then so here's something interesting. So we have these pointers going to difficulty level in deck toggle. So let's take a look at what the original one looked like, so we know what we're working with. So I'm gonna turn this off for a minute and find help general setup and just pop that in there. This is the the landscape version. It has everything with the pointers. So it's on landscape, it has like the all the dungeons across the top, all the heroes across the bottom. So it's laid out a little bit differently. So there's the dungeons, the heroes, the potion toggle, the deck toggle, and the difficulty level is novice. So we need to make sure we get all those pointers pointing to the correct things in the in the updated version of it. So I'm gonna delete this from the scene because I don't want to mix them up. Okay, so dungeons, it's more or less the right place. The heroes label is all the way out here. I think I want to have that, well, we'll see. I'll stick it over there for the moment. And I'll make the text a little bit bigger. If it makes sense, I might move it to the other side, but we'll see. Okay, so that's dungeons and heroes. And maybe I should label these pointers to make it dungeon pointer. This is the for heroes pointer. Difficulty pointer. And deck pointer. This way it should be easier to follow for those of you that are following along with me. Okay, so the difficulty we need to point to wherever it says novice, which is all the way down here on portrait. So I will move that right down here. So it's pointing to where it says novice, and I'll make the text a little bit bigger and move it over slightly. Okay. Now, potion pointer. Of course, it's up there. That we're gonna be switching over to be on this side. And I think we want that to be just straight off to the side. And it looks like it is a little bit, well, yeah, I think that's okay. And then the text, obviously, we don't want it to be off to the side like it was, and we'll make that 25. And I think it probably makes sense to just put those out in 2 lines so it fits in the margins there. And there you go. There's the potion toggle, and the deck is going to be on this side, but once again we're going to want to rotate that to be straight across. And probably a lot longer, so you know what, it might be easier just to delete that and duplicate the pointer toggle. We'll call it deck there, and then move the and what was this, the deck toggle, I believe is what that was called. And I'm not 100% sure, so I'm gonna double check. Yeah, deck toggle. Okay. Alright, and maybe that should be centered text. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so now it actually does seem a little bit low in there. So maybe this doesn't need to be quite as tall. Alright. So now we have the updated image, and there's pointers to all the different pieces, but it looks like when I change the height, they got shifted around. So I'll adjust them again. And the cool thing about having it laid out this way is that it'll stretch to fit even if it's a different like even if it's a different aspect ratio, it'll still all fit in on the screen because it's inside of it's the same width, it's just a different height, so it stretches things out. So that's looking pretty good. This text is a little bit close down here, so I will, that is okay. It looks like that is the thing that was a concern, so lower down where we put a spacer in, so I'll put a spacer back, put a spacer in there to make that, yeah, now it looks good. And then what press play, we can see what's in this other box here. So that's also just showing the hero card, dungeon card, boss card, and then some information about Forest of Shadows and difficulties. So it's all looking about right. So I think we're ready to commit our changes to this prefab and move on to the next one. Alright, so that was the setup and a counter steps. Yeah, all different. And I think most of these I'm just swapping out the picture. Oh, this one has some pointers too. So, oh, the other thing that I always want to check with these is to make sure that the parent that the vertical layout group worked, and yeah, it has all the content inside of. Yeah, it works, because if the content isn't inside of the area with the blue dots, then it won't scroll properly. Alright, so that looks that's good. So encounter steps 2. Alright. So what this is showing here is the heroic feat, and for landscape it showed here's the whole screen and then like zoomed in on this heroic feat, and we probably are gonna, I think it makes sense to change that a bit for portrait. So this heroic feat, I'm going to turn that off for the moment and turn off these pointers while we're laying this out. So this, how much space do we have in here? 500, perfect. So we're going to swap out the help heroic feat for help heroic feat portrait, and it fits about right. I'm not sure why it's showing it's less than 500. But alright. And I think it kind of, you can see where the heroic feat is, and also like lower down there's a zoomed in one. So I think it's probably enough here to just have a pointer pointing at this heroic feat here. Oops. But maybe from the other side. And I'm thinking I'll put a label on that just to be doubly clear what's going on. And of course it rotated it. And we want to make sure we get it back to the correct text, which was, that's not right. Is that the text we were using in the other ones? Because these are using Tonga, so I don't know why it's not giving me that as an option. That's a little weird. Well, the quick solution is to just copy the text off of one of these and add it to here. And put that in the second pointer, and we're going to call this heroic feat. Alright, but regardless, so now we have the new screenshot, and it's got a label pointing to the heroic feat, and everything else was looking okay here, so we can go ahead and save this prefab too. Or apply our changes to the prefab. That was encounter steps 2, and I think, oh, I do have that listed separately. Alright, now there's 4B, 5, and 6. So these ones, some of them have multiple screenshots on them. Yep, for example this one, but they're both at the end, so it shouldn't be a big deal to update those. So let's see, if they're both 500 height with a little bit of space, we'll make this 1200. And then see how that goes. Alright. So the first one is going to be help place dice 1 portrait, and the second one is going to be help place dice 2 portrait. And if you're not from, and I will show you what these are showing. It's showing the screen right after you've rolled the dice, before you place them on the challenge boxes, and then what it looks like after you've placed them on the challenge boxes. And it's an example where there's no consequences, and then you would press end encounter, collect your loot, and move on to the next monster. So let's see, we need to make these a little bit taller. And okay, I see what's happening. So these are inside of a grid layout group, which has them limited to a height of 280, so we're going to change that height to 500. So now it'll all fit, and we need some more spacing. Oh, we don't need spacing X, we need spacing Y. Which, I think that works pretty well, and then I guess the height doesn't need to be quite as much. Actually, that looks, well, we want to make it 1020, so it includes everything. Maybe a little bit of extra space. So that looks pretty good for placing our dice on those screenshots. We will apply our change to that prefab. Go to number 5. Similar situation, except this example is showing you, like, here's your dice, and then you're going to suffer consequences. And I actually think in the portrait captures it has the same consequences, just because that's the way it worked out, which is very helpful. So I'll go ahead and update these with help consequences 1 portrait and help consequences 2 portrait. Alright. But those are really tiny and hard to read, so we'll make it all a lot bigger. So this is also using a grid layout group, and I guess this one must be ignoring the layout, yeah. And actually I think it probably makes sense to make this a child of the second image. So then when that gets moved around, this is going to move with it. And just like on that other page, make the height 1050 and the size of these 500 with 20 spacing. Yeah, it's a very quiet day in the chat. I don't know. It's kind of out of time. There's a couple people watching, so hopefully hopefully you're enjoying it, even if you don't have any comments. And if you missed it earlier, feel free to, drop any comments or questions in the chat. And if you are joining us late, this will all be posted on YouTube at a later time. Okay, so those pages are looking okay. And it looks like we're going to need a little bit more space at the bottom. So let's make it, give it another, yeah, that should work. And then we can move this consequences box further down. And maybe make it a little bit bigger. I think that I don't know why there's an image on this one. I'm going to clear that out, close to make it nothing, and turn it off because it is strange. Consequences panel. Looks like I just have that scaled up. I'll just scale it up slightly more. To make it easier to see. And then there's the line. So we can make that a little taller. Too tall. So you can kind of see it's like zooming in on the consequences, and since they happen to line up, we don't need to change any of the numbers in there, and I think this is about where it needs to be, at least for today. Everything's inside the blue dots, and we can apply our changes and go to step 6. And it looks like here it's just one image for the loot. And I will just go ahead and update that with the portrait version. Make it taller, and it automatically scales, and don't really need to do anything else to this prefab. Now for some reason it's way longer. I don't remember. Oh, because there's a, yeah, because if I press play you'll see there's an example of a card at the bottom. Yeah, there's a, because it's talking about some Forest of Shadows specific things. Alright. Let's commit, I will commit the changes to this page. And there are just 2 more pages left to update. So descending, and and these ones will just be pretty straightforward, just updating the screenshot and then saving the changes. Okay, and boss fight. Alrighty. So that is hopefully looking pretty good. And I will go test it out in the portrait help scheme and make sure everything is looking correct. Sure, I'll save my changes. And we're going to go ahead and maximize it. And let's Alright. So let's take a look at, so this is a page that we updated. It looks like the heroes label is getting a little bit cut off there. So that's one thing that I want to go back and fix. And this one looks pretty good in terms of layout anyway. This one is also working. These screenshots I haven't updated because they're more, it's the same, you get the same idea, and there was still no, I don't know if they're 100% final yet, but it's just, you know, the same, there's no drastic change like there is for the whole scene. These ones are looking good, everything is showing up as expected. There's the loot. Descending and boss fight. Alright, so I will go adjust that one label in the help testing scene. So that's setup. Yeah, I was a little concerned about putting the heroes on that side. I think it might actually make more sense to move it to the other side anyway. Well, not necessarily. I can just push this pointer in a little bit. Yeah, because the text should line up with the one above it anyway. I might make the pointer slightly shorter. Move the text in a bit more. That should be good. I'll check it real quick and then we can move on to the options panel. Did I skip right through it? Yep, now it all fits in there pretty well. And so that's looking pretty good. So it looks like we've updated those pages. You know, I have this to-do list of other stuff that needs to be done, and you know, some other stuff that I might change. And then the overview page. I didn't want to get into that too much on the stream because it's a little bit more involved, but I will show you. Which one is it? So because it's the game screen overview and it's showing like all the different things happening on the screen. And as you know, in Portrait, it's not all on the screen at the same time. There's a panel for the hero, a panel for the, well, I'll show it. I can show it to you real quick in case you didn't see John's stream last week. The way it's laid out is there's the hero panel over there on that side, on the side, and to the left, the main panel in the middle, which is where like all the action happens. You open doors and fight monsters. And there's the utility panel that has the, you know, the time, and then another utility panel with the potions and your general supply. So I'm gonna have to do some switching around of things on that page. So I'm not gonna get into that on the stream today, but I will go over to the options page and make some visual adjustments before John does some code adjustments to it. So actually I will show you what it looks like right now. So right now, you open up the main, if you're where the game's at right now, the main menu, this is the main menu, click on options, get an options pop-up, and this is right now using the landscape options panel. And it has all the information on it, but it is pretty tiny, and it would be pretty hard to use in this format on a phone. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch it to a tab system where it only shows some of the information at a time. And I took a screenshot of what the options panel for Sentinels looks like. So you can see there's different tabs. And right now it has like audio tab selected, where it just shows you like the volume and the audio related settings. So we're going to do something similar for One Deck Dungeon. It's going to look a little bit different, but similar idea. So I'll hop over to the options panel, and alright, so as you can see, it is popping out of the screen, which is okay. We will fix that. So the first thing I'll do is I'll make it fit to the size of the screen, which is 540, and I'm going to move it so it extends to the top of the screen. So right now that's putting, make the height, we'll make it 850. That sounds like a nice round number. In this position it should be 0, maybe, no. I will tie it down to the, did I mix that up? I can't mix that up. Yeah. Why is it? Okay. Thank you. I apologize if that made a loud ding. I don't know if my stream is picking up desktop noise or not. I don't think it should be, but it might be anyway. Alright, so I want it to fit inside of here. What I could do is just I don't know why the root panel. Oh, I see the problem. The root panel is locked to this middle area. So, because using the wrong aspect ratio, it's using 1.333. So, so let's see. So, like for example, on the let's not save our changes right now. So in the help scene, the root panel, it's using 0.5625. So that would be like 9 divided by 16, I believe, is what that number is. And like 1.333 would be like 4 divided by 3. So let's get the right aspect ratio into the options scene, because otherwise nothing will fit correctly. Alright, so now it's putting the banner at the top where it belongs, which is good. And then we can get the panel. Yeah, because the option header scroll actually, like, that's exactly where I want it. And then the panel, want to be the width of the screen. And let's see, does that look right? I'm going to need a little bit more room than that at the bottom, so maybe we'll make it 800. And move it up slightly. That's too far. Okay. So that's not bad. And then we just need to rearrange all the stuff inside. So there's the sound container, the animation container. We don't really need a resolution container because it's on a phone. It's already going to be decided. So we can just turn that off. Probably could delete it, but for right now I'll just turn it off. Confirm container and hints container. And so what these are, it's going to be audio, animation, and gameplay. Are going to be the 3 tabs that we're adding in. Or just, well, we could do audio, display, and gameplay. So I'll start with the audio, which only is going to be showing the sound container, which is really just the effects volume and the music volume. So it looks like all we really need to do there is update the sizing, and then I'll put the effects, I'll put them, arrange them vertically instead of side by side, because there's not enough room there. So the effects slider, we'll put it at 0, and why don't I just I'll set this to match. How's the panel? Oh, it has a vertical layout group. Okay. Because it was all fitting there before. That makes sense when there was multiple sections in there. But I'm going to go ahead and turn that off so that we can set this to fill the area. And we can actually make it into a grid for sound, because alright, that looks like it kind of broke some things, so before I do that, I will check the size. So it's like right now they're 300 by 100. So we'll see. Maybe this will work, maybe it won't. Yeah, that will work. And we're going to add a whole bunch of padding in there. So we'll make it 100 from the top, and then 50 from each side. And then some spacing. Might need more spacing than that. And we have some room to make these a lot bigger as well. So, like, we can make it, right now they're 300 by 100, we can make them like 500 by 200. No, maybe not 500, 450. $200 might be a bit much. Let's try 150. And I'm going to be making some adjustments so the sizes line up. And the other thing is this quit button needs to be in a better position. So let's put that, make it bigger. I actually think that should probably be in the upper right hand corner of this. So that looks about right, or at least better than it was. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that'll probably need further adjusting, but as long as it's not blocking anything here. So let's see. So the handle is right, but the sliding area looks good, but the handle itself is a little small. So let's try making that 50. Does that look right? We can play it and see if it looks right when we press play. And that looks about right. There's some blank space in there, and if there's that much blank space on the other screens, on the other tabs, I may make the whole thing shorter, but so that looks about right. I'll adjust the other handle on the effects slider to match, and then I can make these labels much bigger as well. Actually, all of them. So on the header scroll, what size is this? This is 36. We can make that 40. Or even 50 probably, but it's probably not necessary because it's just the top. Music volume, let's try 35. I think that works okay. Effects volume, or maybe 40. It's a bit big, but that, since we have the space, we might as well use it. And we can space these out a little bit more. Alright, so that's looking okay. And it's actually being used. There's plenty of space to move it, and you can kind of see it. And then just to double check what happens when it stretches out, it just puts it in the middle of the screen, which I think works okay. Alright, so the sound container is looking okay. So that'll be the audio. So I'm gonna, yeah, actually I can leave that as the sound container. Alright, now let's update the animation container to work in a similar way. So this one we anchored it in there and then made it a grid, so I think I'll do the same thing for this one. Alright, so you can see the blue dots are where the edges go, and then I will make this one also be a grid. And let me just make sure, what size did I make the 450 by 150? I'll do the same thing for this grid. Let's see how it works. Works for some of them and not for others, but that's okay. Well, we can fix that. And I think we did like 120 from the top and then 50 from each side. Yeah, it looks like the check marks are getting a little stretched out. That's okay. So, and we need some spacing in here for sure. That might be too much spacing. Alright, and then we'll go and make some adjustments to each one of these things. So we can make the title a bit bigger. I think we're making it 40. And the handle will be 50. And then we also have these slow and fast labels in here too, which are definitely too small. 30 and bring it in a little bit more. Oops. I don't know why that. I didn't do that. Let's make it 35. -5 and 5. Yeah, that. I think that's okay, as long as we don't have this check mark going into it, but we won't because we're going to fix that. So the label here can be 40. Ooh. I'll make it 35. Not 53, 35. Alright, and then the checkbox, right, because we don't have preserve aspect selected, which doesn't, let's see, so it's 40 is the width. We want the width to be a little bigger, maybe 60. We also want the height to be 60. Right now what's happening is it's stretching to the size of the checkbox area, which is not what we want it to do. So I'll change where the anchors are, I'll center it, and make it 60, and then now it is about the right size. And actually I think bigger might be better. Let's see, if I make it 80, will it still fit? Yeah. Because that way it'll be a slightly bigger area to click on, to toggle it on and off. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit big. Let's try 70. 65. Yeah, okay. I think that works for now anyway, and I will update the other ones to match. Let's see. So I made that 35. I'll make these labels also be 35. It'd be nice if they would all fit on one line, and I guess there's not really any reason that they can't, because it seems like there's enough room, but looks like I got some anchors. Yeah, Well, but then that won't leave enough room, so I will leave it like that. That's interesting. Yeah, maybe. Well, I'll fix these ones first and see how it looks. When they're all uniform, we can see how if they all look right. Okay, so so I was in the process of making some adjustments to these checkbox items in here, and it looks like, oh, I see what happened. It's because of the size of this. So I can make a little bit less spacing in here. I mean, I could take out the spacing altogether, and then these would be spaced correctly, but then that would be kind of a tight fit. So I think that's probably alright. And do I have all these labels at the same size? Yeah, I wonder, I mean, part of me wants to put these on separate lines to match the other ones, but then it seems a little bit crowded. I could force this to fit in there, which does the opposite of what I wanted it to do, but that's okay. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I'll do that for these. And it doesn't need to be indented at all from the left. I apologize, somebody's phone is ringing. So that should go off in a minute. And I'll adjust these labels. So then that works. We can auto size this one too. Alright, so this is looking about right. You know, we could probably fine tune it a little bit, but the general idea is there. There's these check boxes are large, you can see this. So I think that's probably okay for the animation page. So I will close that, and then the third one is going to be the gameplay, which is going to be a combination of the confirm container and the hints container, which right now are a few different things. So I think those can probably all be combined into one gameplay container, and so I'll change this confirm container to a gameplay container, and I'll move all the pieces inside of there. So let's see, and then in the hints container is the hints checks box and reset hints. And it looks like mush those all close together, but that's okay, because we're just going to get rid of that, and then we're going to update the gameplay container to match the other ones. And it looks like that's already set up as a grid layout group, which is great. It will just need some adjusting. Okay, so we want some more padding than that from the top. Maybe not 120, 100, we'll try. And then what size do we make these? Oh, the resolution container. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and delete that since we don't really need it. Yeah, I'll leave it. So the down container is 450 by 150 is what we made the grid cells and all the other ones. So maybe it's 450 by 150, and let's see if we do 0. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna make these, we're gonna have to do the sizing a little differently on this, because so 450 is a good width, but they don't need to be quite as tall. 100 looks like it fits it all in pretty well. So we'll adjust it like this and then see if it needs further adjusting. So for all these check boxes, reset all of the checkboxes to not stretch out. I think I made those 65 by 65. And then all the labels, we're going to make a little bit bigger and have them not be shifting in. I think I made all those 35, which is actually working pretty well. And then, like, so for this one, I can put that when dice not used to the second line. So I think that's working okay. And let's see, what is, oh, this label up here is ignoring the layout, of course. So if we tell it not to ignore the layout, then it will show up in the correct place. But ignoring the layout might not be a terrible idea, because then we can fit it into this blank spot up here, and it doesn't need quite as much space. Although, enable usage confirmations. Yeah, let's make that. Yeah, I guess that's okay. If I auto size it to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, everything's a little bit tight in there. We can space it out a little bit. So we don't need any X spacing, but we could bring some Y spacing. Yeah. This reset hints at the bottom is a little bit different. So we can make the label 35 like the other ones, and the reset hints button is kind of tiny. Let's make that bigger. Okay, what's going on here? So we don't need to move it over, we can just move it bigger. I'll left align that text so there's room for the reset hints. That's too much. We want the text to be bigger so it's easier to read. So the label, it's a little bit big. Yeah, it's not terrible. So if I press play, looks like everything is looking about right. So there's one other piece of this that I want to add in, and then John will be hooking it up, which is the tab buttons at the bottom. So if you remember, for Sentinels, there's these buttons at the bottom. So there are a couple ideas for this, and I will, so I guess the first thing I will do is I will add a button panel for them. Let's see. On a UI panel. It's going to be down here. And we're going to anchor it to the bottom of the parent object. So we'll put that at 0, 0, 0, 0. And maybe not quite that tall. I think that's, we can try it like that. Let's try 110 because I want it to fill the space. You know, I mean, it's gonna get pulled up. See, so when it's taller aspect ratio, but that's okay. And then inside of this panel, I will put some buttons. And it looks like I'm offline again, which I don't know why I would be offline again, but it looks like I am. I'm not sure why, like, I'm connected to the internet. What's going on, Twitch? Or OBS, or whatever it is. It looks like I'm still online on my end. So hopefully I come back online for those of you that are missing me, but I will keep talking and hope that you can get back on, that I reappear. OBS, let's see. It looks like it is still, it's still streaming and recording, so I apologize that I've disappeared again, because I know I definitely disappeared earlier, so I guess there's something weird going on either with the internet, or maybe I have too many things running, which is also very possible. So I made these wooden tab buttons, and so that was kind of what I was thinking. You know, the other option would be to use like these square buttons, but I thought, you know, this would be something kind of neat to use a button that looks like a tab. So we'll call this, this is the first one, so this will be the audio tab. And then inside of this, we'll add some text, so I can just copy this text and put it in here with some anchors. And, oh, I copied from the quit button because, of course I did. I wanted to copy the gradient, but that's okay, because we're going to be changing the gradient colors anyway. So we're going to call this audio. And we get small caps, and we're not going to have it beveled. It's going to be, and let's try auto size, and we're going to do color gradient. So we're going to turn it off, and then I had some colors I had picked out to make it kind of like these blue check marks. So I have my super secret visual language document. So let's do this. Put in the light blue for the top of the gradient. And then there's a darker blue for the bottom of the gradient. And I think that's working. That's kind of nice. It's not, it needs to fit in here a little bit better. So I think that, you know, that looks okay. And then we want it to be a button. And instead of a color tip, we're going to do a sprite swap. Because that way when it's selected, it will be this brighter version of itself. So, and since we don't have to worry, well, I'll keep it pressed when it's that also. Disabled. You know what, I don't have a disabled version, but I don't think it's really relevant here, so I'll just put the regular wooden tab in. And so then when I press play, you can see, oh good, I'm back on. Thank you for letting me know, Migrant P. So this, when you, obviously you're not going to mouse over it if you are playing it on phone, but when it's selected, it'll be a brighter color than when it's not. And it looks like we want it to be slightly lower down, so it's not overlapping, but that's all going to get fixed when we put this inside of a grid. So we're going to call this the the tab panel, and I'll have 3 tabs in there. We're going to make this a grid layout group. And yeah, I mean, it did exactly what a grid layout group does, which is it spaced them out, which is great, except we want them to be wider than that. So, you know, 200's too big. I think I figured out the exact size I wanted to make them. Let me check my notes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what I was thinking. Okay, so I think I did 170, but I can actually make them. So, I mean, here we get into, like, do we want to have spaces in between them or not? And actually, like, it works, I mean, it works okay to have them, like, right up against each other because there's a, you know, a border around them. And then, like, you know, when one's selected, it'll be, you know which tab you're on based on it being a little bit brighter. So actually, I think that is working pretty well. I should update the labels on them though in the title. So first one's the audio tab, the middle one is the display tab, and the third one is the gameplay tab. And let's make sure that the text works well enough in them. So we'll call this display, and we'll call this one gameplay. Okay, so it doesn't look real good when they're different size texts, but the good news is there's room to make the text a little bit bigger. So if we do, what does that actually make the size? It makes it 32.25. So we're gonna not do auto size, and we're gonna just make these about 33. Nope, 32. Okay, I guess we'll make the text 32. At least for now, and maybe John will have a better idea, but I think that's working. So, you know, you can see how it looks. The tabs will be, you know, audio, display, and gameplay. And they'll toggle these different panels to be on or off. So this is the gameplay container, the audio container. I'm going to rename this the audio container, and the animation container, which I will rename the display container. Or alternatively, put animation on the button instead of display, but display is a shorter word, so that's why I used it. So yeah, so that's a general direction for the options panel. You know, it'll probably get adjusted at least a little bit, but there you go. So what I'm going to do is I will save the scene and save the project and commit my changes. And push them up to the repository so that John can get to them. So I'll go ahead and do that. Which you've probably, I don't know if I've ever done that on a stream, but I'm sure that you have seen other people in Handelabra do that on the stream. So let's see. I updated some portrait help pages, and I made some visual updates to the options panel, or options scene, options portrait scene. Ordinarily, I probably wouldn't put this many things in one commit, but that's what I'm doing today. So there are my changes, and it looks like there were some other things that got pushed up since I last pulled. So I'll pull those, and then I'll push it all back up together. And that is about it for me today, unless anybody has any questions, and I'll be sticking around in the chat while John is doing his stream. So thank you for joining me. I apologize. I disconnected a few times, I guess. Or at least once, and maybe it caused some problems because it happened once. Anyway, let's make sure everything is still working before I push it up. And I apologize for the ding. It just dinged at me. Anyway. Alright, I guess I won't make y'all wait for this before I turn it over to John. So thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to a great stream from John as well. So I'm going to sign off and have a great day.